Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Welcome and Tashi Delek to all the viewers of Dharma television around the world. I am Khadro Lhamo Yangchen, the presenter and interpreter for the following Rinpoche program for its 22nd episode. We are very fortunate to have Sangngak Tenzin Rinpoche with us to share his precious wisdom. I request Rinpoche to please share the valuable wisdom with us. Simchen namgi samba tang loi cheda cheda wa chejong thumong thepai chogi khorlo kotuso.
Domingombo bardan la mala nyamne chukur tawe mokeje tonjer gombe nyam lambo ruparza jewan jento barjo ndartali dongye Dharma wayo ravrujen dar tobe wangir ma martoye si chemborang dangje Chusa domi yangzi jangjira ji tezen kadang nyambe yishi ge shokde muntazi danru genji pande tonggen juwe vijin drikchen juwe dhardi tobar sho Ola soda teni terang yang teni sansik nangken lambat samala samdru tashi delishu
And Tashi Delek to all the viewers.
다더니 가서 다 대랑 그랬더니 당가서 주택대라 간저에 세나더니 가서 가정 그 다대근 초대래 더니 가서 공라야 다지 심바 바로도 심바 그 당보대 더니 심바 차가요래 심바인디 다서 가서 가서 공도 심비 나니 장 더니 문직 받잡 심바 세네로와
So, in our previous episode, Rinpoche shared about among the 6 perfections, the first perfections of generosity, and among that is discussed about giving protection from fear.
문직바 된저 잡지 심바세야 되다 개체모지라 저기요래 간저에서나 드니 샘전세야 되라 다 렌탕 체슈데 간저에서나다 라랑 그 채속들 왔더니 라랑 그 채속들에 된저 인디 다서 드니 라랑 그 채속대 가르스나다 된저 그더니 렌탕 체비게 채속대 la tengarang so ge ju japa ra wa tani chesok japa tang jang ge chesok la no pam japa la so par wa da tenje ji ge tani lika na wa de la na ta ji kang so ge munjik pa ko la te par wa tani munjik pa se ten munjik pa ja ji jin ba se ne te ta ba ge tani nyam la nang ba de la yang de ji bu la yang tani ta par du shin ba zhe ge nyam nen sang ma yong su zo da yong ken ra wa o tani ji ge ko la shin na sam song se.
So Rinpoche today would like to share about all the sentient beings. We all have life, and what is most precious is the life we adorn with. So all sentient beings adorn with life, and they cherish and they consider the preciousness of their life. So to protect their life, to protect from giving protection from the fear to them, and saving their lives, and practicing on saving lives is such a valuable and important practice. So Rinpoche would like to share about that. And this mere saving life and giving protection to the other animals, saving life, this mere practice consists of all 6 perfections practice.
Tendri indi taso tenita tendri kanso gore nyamnen se gora tendri tela tani kandri sena tani ta ji semchen ge chesok japa la sopa tela ta mambon da ngarang su chetar ta ya tendri yor wa tan ji semchen ka shi ji gar sena ji ta ji chela ne ka tong ji so ya ge gar sena tani 다득 지니 드니 던저 진체라 니비 그 갑텔라 드니 코 델리 짬네와 던저 지달리나요 세터라 땅야 던저제 드니 쇼지 가상 공도 시바나 정가랑 소그 가르스나랑 소소그 모니 teni garzila roji tere teni ini ta garzila robani na teni kansagurita yang janda semjin te sesola noba ge ji chakayo marwa teni garziro ne jang sesong te teni japtabu yore o teni rest.
So to engage in this saving life of others through giving protection of fear, there are different methods that we can engage in. For example, if one animal is about to kill, about to slaughter in a slaughtered house, then before at the very right moment, to buy that animal and save it from being killed. So that is one method of life releasing. And another precious method is relying on a vegetarian diet, because through relying on a vegetarian diet, we are spontaneously not harming on the life of others.
tani parutu shimba trick nangata tani tangbote karsana tani jimbarwa tindi nita jimba ta chi mangbo yopi nani chi chesokko jimbate jimba chokto chirwa renda tindi re tindi ndi ngarang so ta tapsi kanre yuna jang chesokla kanso gure tani nopa ma chirwa tindi chi tani tela kyobya ga tapsi kanre ndgrwa tindi ndi ngarang so chu nyamna jengke ndi mixer ke chi ta chi semchen la yang tani korang checho 메바 타나 지금 무슨 라소바 던지지 양 남가라 지금 년가요 바 던지지 임바이나 닝가랑 소그지 강서 그랬다 그 점도 그 삼바그와 그런 거 고라 냥제지 드니 강서 그랬던데 지달이야 지금 바 자게 상라고 당 사차 지금 년가면서 던질라 던지자 던지지 바이나 양 강서 딸고 대 문직 바 잡고 좀 바스니 어 디테일한로 그랬어.
So among engaging in the practice of perfection of generosity, so one is the generosity of life. So that practice is called under the giving protection from fear, and so we need to adapt different methods, like how not to harm others' life, how even try our best to save the insects, as small as insects life. Like on the road, if you find one insect about to die, then you take that insect safely from the roadside and put it on a grass. Where is the grass? So that with the intention of saving the life, and with the intention and the love and compassion to that smallest of insects, and that is very important. And so that is comes under the practice of giving protection of life and the protection of life through the generosity of giving life.
teni dela teni ta sitemji paru to shimbazi ni bade karsana teni jimba controla sitem rewa teni sitem teni yopare kandre sena teni ta ju ji semchen dog kabla yang song pare teni dog kabla karsana sitemji paru to shimba kangshena teni janla no papong bi semba o seni teni jini song pare.
So this mere saving life of other animals also includes the second paramitas, which is the transcendent of discipline. So in sutra it is said, what is the transcendent discipline? It is the intention of abandoning the motivation or intention of abandoning of harming others is the transcendent of discipline.
Tende indi taso karsana chikta ngarang soga teni janla teni kansa kureta chik pansim chi dalirwa tende chi dalina teni no nyangje che teni tendre ke teni janla manno ya ke chete teni gangso ke ta jang ke cheso tendre jabgo yorwa pe na jana nga so chi ta karzi nda urawa teni si karzi ta bachi ga ina yang teni karzi te karsan o ta chi shatrak la sopan teni sa somba ina teni semjin la teni janla no ba chang ro de sera ti no pa te gangso ko teni pangwe ke chete ta gangso ko teni karzi la ro yin serwa shato so sagmen samne tendre ji da le na teni shana no pa changro de samje ke tendre ke no pa pong sembase o tendre rest.
So how is the having the intention of motivation not to harm others is reflecting ourselves that if I rely on a non-vegetarian diet, if I rely on eating meat and meat, then it directly harms others' life. So if I don't eat meat, then with love and compassion to the life of animals, then having intention that I'm not going to harm others, and with the practice of relying on a vegetarian diet, I won't be harming others' life. So with such intention, relying on a vegetarian diet, comes spontaneously the practice of transcendent of discipline.
Yeah, tende indi ta ji garzin chungken tende ji tene yimba yana kanjir se gorasena ta te la tene tsitamyang yore tene kola tene tsitam rawa kanare sena tene machakpa tsitam se grawa tene tende indi ta so tene ta garsena tene garzin chungken de shatak la sokpa la tene machak ne rawa tende ji de lina tene ta ju ko garzila rogu yorwa o tende indi ta so kola tene garzin chungken de la yo tene kola tsitam yore es.
So relying on vegetarian diet are also the practice of transcendent of discipline, because what is the practice of transcendent of discipline is not being attached to. So while relying on the vegetarian diet, the person is not being attached to the eating meat, not being attached to meat. So that's how relying on vegetarian diet spontaneously comes the practice of transcendent of discipline.
Tende indi ta tene garzin chungken de la garzana ta da konda shiba najin koga garzana tene menjik pa jab ko jimba sene tene kola tene jimba yang tene yore jimbi parato jimba dang tene kansa ko ta da konda shiba najin ga tende ga ta ji tene tsitum ji parato jimba rawa tende tene ta garzila sopa tene chebi ga kaptela ta ji machakni tene machakpa tsitum ji ta da konda shiba yamba tende tene tsitum yang du tende indi ta so ta ji jimba tang tene kansa ko tsitum te ni ga yoba mas te tang nyamdo la garzana tene ta ngasu zopa sene rawa tene parato jimba ga nang ta ji simba tene zopa te yang tene yong su zo yoba o tende ji res.
And people relying on the vegetarian diet spontaneously is practicing of practice of the transcendent of generosity, because through relying on vegetarian diet, we are giving protection to the lives of animals. And secondly, spontaneously is practicing on the transcendent of discipline, because not being attached to the meat. And thirdly, contains the practice of transcendent of patience.
Tene ni ta garzana tene ko ga yang tende ga yang ge che so ja pa dang tene garzila ro la so pa tende ji da le na ta ji kang sa gure tende ge tene nyamlen tende la tene na yang be ga kap de la ni ka sa nga so ta ji ma tene ji sha cha la so pa sha sa la so pa komni tende ji yimba ina ta ji ka sa ji lam sa yang tene sha sa ge ji pa ya de la yang tene le la yo ma wa de la yang ka le ma bo ji de indi ta so ta ko ka le rimba ji komni tene ko pang go yo wa o tende indi ta so ta de ka sa na ji yang ji tende ge ma kom shi ta ji ngang gom sekora kumshi ngamba te go wanga yang kangsa gore chi kali mangbo chi yongdi ta so chi ngaso yang chi zoba tani ni chego yara zopi go katab sekora tandre go tengo sayang pe mangbo chi yores.
So if a person would like to rely on a vegetarian diet newly, and that also consists the practice of transcendent of patience, because if one is habituated in relying on meat, eating meat, then because of the habituation on eating meat, if one need to cut on meat immediately, that might be a little bit harder for them. So trying best, making an effort to not making an effort in a new habit on relying on a vegetarian diet, so that's how they can't easily adapt the vegetarian diet, yet through the hardship, through making the effort, that is the relying on a vegetarian diet, that comes under the practice of transcendent of patience.
Tendrigeta shenchak chigyorwa shenchak tozo tamjela ko zogo grwa rema toso chirwa chi yang chi ngaso huma go komji te yong chi shaga kazila sobata tende tong di taso chi yang tene gangso chi zoma taban rawo chi sando la ya ta tendi yang tene ko kombi wang yong grwa tende indi taso ta zopa tawi katme sarwa tende go karsana chi yang tene katab tende tengo ba tende yong gres.
So if one is not used to the vegetarian diet, yet one try to rely on a vegetarian diet, and as that person have a clinging to the eating meat, clinging to the bad habit that we have from beginning, relying on eating meat, then at that time when newly adapting on a vegetarian diet, we need to make effort. So there is a quote saying that patience is there is no harder practice than practicing on patience. Yeah. Yes.
Tende indi tata karsana tende la tende kansar tende zopa yang tende yore tende zopi ge nyamla yang nango gre rema tos jera zopi ge tende kar nyamla tende matsang songa ina te nyam nyamla te pensum sopa tende chakamarawa tende indi zopi nyamla tende yore tende indi ta ji zopa ge tende ji dalina tende nyamla te tang ji dal mepa la kansu gre tende zondi yang tende korang sang yore est.
Yes. So while relying on a vegetarian diet, we need to also engage in the practice of patience, because without practice of patience, and it is quite not possible to engage in a vegetarian diet simultaneously. Not being away from the practice of patience, we also need to have the practice of diligence.
Zopa kauna yona tedang nyamdala kansa guru tsundi delebda gires rawa tsundi remerwa rema tongsa chirwa karsana chi yang zopi go katab teni yobala te nyamdala tsundi meba tende yongu mares tende indita so tata kondu shibana tsundi te nyamdo yores.
So where there is a practice of patience, simultaneously comes the practice of diligence, because practice of patience is a practice of hardship, and so where there is a practice of patience, there will be the practice of diligence.
Tende indita tsundi ji paru tu shimba yang tani tsangayore kandure sena tani ni jasi shiwa laga tsongang gila tuwa wo songbarwa tende indita so ta karsana giwi ge nila tuwa tende chigla tsundi sege yore tende indita so karsana ani nga so kangso gore ta chi jang chesok chum ken rawa tende tela karsana ani jang jala no pa ma chini chesok chum ya tela ko tuwa yore rawa tene tuwa yore tende indita so tene ka manjik ba chap gu jimba tende nangken jan setar tang na ra tende ji chale nangken tela tene gewa te drubya tang setar nda gu ji tang ba ina ta setar te tang ya gu so so sem ga na tela be tene te gu tuwa yo gu yore tende indita so ti tuwa tela karla bure sen tela tsundi segre est.
Yes. So while practicing on giving protection of life to protection from fear, so have a different methods to engage in it through saving life and not harming others' life and life releasing and relying on a vegetarian diet. All this process includes the practice of patience, because Shantideva had stated that whoever have a joyfulness on engaging in virtuous activities is called the practice of diligence. So in the whole process, the person who practice in these have a joyful state of mind, and they would like to apply hardship and take all the methods to save the other's life and not harm others' life, and have this effort through the joyful state of mind. So that is that subsumes the practice of transcendent diligence.
Teni karsi la roba ina yang karsi rongen de karsi na ota ji karsi la teni rosomba ina teni jan semjin la noba chakamande samni tega karsi na teni tega teni payun de chandwa payun de chen teni karsi na ta marsi se de pemas ke ni ba chembo rende marsi la teni dalina semjin la noba changro gende te semjin la noba cha te wang ngara so ji nga song la teni ndam go yarwa tenje jida dita nimu tenje chimbunde samne tenje jida so karsana teni so tenje karse se ate perin tang chimbunde samne karsi long joya la so semgana troa chimbu yong gres to na chimbu tenje legra tenje go troa teni yong dita so dela eta karsana teni ta ji shiba ima zonggang gela troa sene tenje go zunji ji paru tishimba ote sangres.
So while relying on vegetarian diet, we will experience some kind of joy that through relying on a vegetarian diet, I'm not harming others animals' life, and then we reflect on the benefit of saving others' life through relying on a vegetarian diet. And on the other hand, if we rely on a non-vegetarian diet, it will simultaneously harm others' life, and that will also result us in reborn in three lower realms. So reflecting on these, merely relying on a vegetarian diet will bring lots of joy that through this practice we are not harming others' life. Instead, we are helping others' life, we are benefiting others' life. So that kind of joyfulness, joyfulness itself is the practice of diligence.
Tendire tarong tele jam kansa gore ta ji nga so karzi se tela ten sona teni so so kun chorten la yang pe ma se pan to kon de teni chorten ya po ten ri cha ba ina ten nga so kansa gore teni che rangbo la yang de te gun de ro ba teni che rangbo de ba ina ngi ta chu ya po che ya nga la ti chun de ro ba chu mang bo chen de gun de sam ni yang ko la to nang ji te gres ten de ge ten de go to nang che yong ba o to so la ta ka se na teni chun di se gres.
So relying on a vegetarian diet, that will also bring a very good health, and when we have good health we will have longer life, and when we have a longer life we will have more time to practice Dharma, and through practicing Dharma we will be able to benefit many beings. That's how whole this process brings lots of joy in us, and that itself becomes the practice of transcendent of diligence.
Tende indi paru tushimba tende tuku nani zundi se ade pe masa ka kechimbo re es teni ta zundi de kechimbo re kandare se na teni zundi de pe na nga so pe jana sherab de pe masa ka chokta jirwa wa sherab yapu ji yo teni kansa ko zundi teni tama jigma to menna karsa na ni chupa tama jigma to yongu mare se ni o teni song yo re es tende indi ta song so teni sherab chongchong jigma to menna yang kansa kore zundi teni chokta jirwa jirwa zundi rab jig yo pa ina te chupa teni rab jig yongu re se ni koran teni song yo re se.
So among the 6 parameters, among the 6 perfection practice on transcendent diligence is very, very important, because for example, if one person have a very good wisdom, no, if one person have very good knowledge, yet that person have very little diligence, then that person's practice won't be good. And if one person has a very little knowledge, yet he have great practice of diligence, then that will help to accomplish the practice. So among the 6 perfections, the transcendent diligence is very important practice.
Tani tsundi rapchigi na nyamlen ba chokta chewa yungu yopa. Tani karsana tani tsundi tamachig mato tani mena ni kansu gore ta sherib rapchigi yona yung chupa tamachig mato yungu meba wote karsana tani tela tena tani kansu gore ta nyamlen yang tani kandrachigi yungu ni sangmata isabu chaka yores.
Yeah, so I missed one point before about about that if the person has the very great practice of diligence and very low knowledge, yet that practitioner can be very supreme practitioner. And if the practitioner have very little diligence, yet if that practice have a great knowledge, then that practice become a very practitioner become a low practitioner. So that's how the level of diligence decides decides whether one can become a supreme practitioner or just a normal practitioner.
Yang cheso japa tang karsila rolwa ge tani karsana ta telindelat ata shiba namjin tendregu tani paru tushimba trikin nangni tani zondi ge parshin deyang sang yore tani zondi ge parshin ge chotela tani ta samten de kandre sena ta tendri ge karsana so nyamlen la ji tani tuwa tang tambarwa tendri ge tata kong zondi parshin shiba namjin tendri ge nyamlen ge ngateni tani kasu gro ta ji di jinde tendrigung ngala tani korang ni tabarwa oda tendri jiyo na ta tela kanso gore tani samden ji parutu shimbayang tela tani indegu yores.
So that's how saving life of others, not harming others, subsume the practice of transcendent diligence. Likewise, then it comes the practice of transcendent concentrations. So in a daily life, continuing the practice of saving life of others and relying on a vegetarian diet, not harming others, being able to sustain, giving continuation of this practice is the practice of transcendent concentration.
제하게 잡아도 파빵으로 아니 코란스 셈제 지그 가르잠뱅게 잡아라 좀봐 드네 간스네 소소가 간스 그랬다 지기도 간스 그랬더니 지 가르지마 또 지 마르지라 소파 던데로 줘야게 가르스나더니 자와산노 던디그 그노 메바라와 던데그 가르스나 그니 드니 코란 진짜면 어디 다소 다다시바 남진데 삼든지 바르도 심바세데 셈 코란 제직드니 바지르와 어떤 데인지 삼든 파르션 그냠나니요 데라 용수 족바레스.
So in daily life, single-pointedly practicing on saving others' life, in daily life, single-pointedly not harming others, and in a daily practice, single-pointedly always relying on a vegetarian diet and abandoning the non-vegetarian diet is the practice. That's how, because the transcendent concentration means our mind become very concentrated and single-pointedly meditative. So engaging all this process with the single-pointedly, that's how it becomes that's how it subsumes the practice of transcendent concentration.
뭐야 근데 인디 따진이 tukpadela sherubji parutu shimba segere tendrege sherubde 가르세나 지다 지금 가서고 그 젠라트니 판타바 그 가서고를 단 저도 제바장 그 채소 잡아들인데 되게 탑데라 세터당야 다지 시바노잖아 지가스라 로와라 소파티 그 파인당 대그 가르스나다 지랑더세고라 또 참마 대가르스나 야포진인 첸야 하고하게 대라더니 가서 그랬더니 셰르브지 바르도 심바양 그런 용수 창다 요레스.
So like discussed before, all this process having acknowledgement of what are the benefits of relying on vegetarian diet, what are the negative aspects on relying on non-vegetarian diet, and accepting, engaging in vegetarian diet, abandoning on non-vegetarian diet. All these are the practice of transcendent of wisdom.
텐데니다 가르스나 텐데가 텐니다 민직바 잡고 심바다고 당 가르진쳐야 라소바 텐데 라양 텐니 강세레 파르드 심바 즉 자성 상다 요레스니 대랑 단돌 디바테 잠직시그레스 대장 대손돌 디바테양 시양질 강세 그랬다 냥본다고 때 다지 돈이 냥지 냥보잖아 되게 나라더니 마상바당 만디바텐지 강양 요 말레스 데레스.
Yeah. So today is shared about how the giving protection from fear to other sentient being and relying upon the vegetarian diet subsume the whole practices of six perfection practice, six transcendent perfections. So, and even if subsumed, if the essence is that all this process subsumed within the practice of emptiness and love and compassion.
Sonamde tamje zibaye tomne nyebe danam pamje jankega nache banon trubai sibe sole dowa dowa sho changa chimbo tai ne dunge simjen tajin sho kewa chewa samis chuden zajan sho jurchi